the notion of Evan Spiegel being willing possibly at some point in the future to give up control of the company. What do you think he means by that?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that in the short term and medium term, he really doesn't want to do that. I think that's very consistent with the other big internet companies like Google, Facebook, and the like that are in sort of that peer group. It's a custom that's sort of been established and more or less accepted by institutions these days that that these large tech titans are going to be sort of founder controlled. And so yeah, I think he'd really like to retain control of Snap for the time being. I think that he's trying to manage the company through a series of transitions that are a little bit bumpy, but I think one of the things that's been true of his tenure is that he's been true to a vision and has been able to kind of keep the company moving more or less in the right direction.
You put that very diplomatically in terms of transitions. I mean, the redesign of the platform was sort of a flop at the beginning. I'm just wondering where you think the company is now in terms of turning the corner from that, especially as we had news last week that it was opening up its platform to developers.
Yeah, Snap faced one major thing that really its predecessors didn't, including Facebook and Twitter, and that is that Facebook came in and really copied a lot of the things that Snap was doing and really created a really tough competitor for Snap on the user growth front and also when it comes to getting mind share from advertisers. And so the company has been working through all the different ways that it can to keep its product and service differentiated and to keep that user base growing. We definitely saw in Q1 that the company went through a major redesign of its service, and it's part of the hesitance for me is it's a little too early to see whether or not that's going to be super effective. But we do know from speaking with the company more recently that they're very excited about the direction of some of the product changes, especially on iOS, which is a minority of global internet smartphone users. But it's important to note that it seems like on the iOS platform, the app redesign is pretty effective in terms of driving better engagement. So now we want to wait and see if the company can do the same thing on the Android front. One of the things, as you mentioned, that we think is going to be somewhat important for driving more engagement is the recently announced Snap Kit, which brings more content from services like Pandora into the Snap ecosystem and could potentially drive more engagement with some new demographics.
So you touched on one thing there a moment ago, and that was, Michael, the idea that Snap was vulnerable to innovation by Facebook. Do they have a better moat around their business now than they did then? And sort of relatedly, are we getting to a point where there are just so many ways people can communicate that the marketplace for products like Snap's products is going to be so fractionalized that it's going to be harder and harder to stand out?
There's always a battle for time spent from the consumer, and what we're seeing in the whole internet and social media ongoing revolution is just this continued shift of time away from things like print media and television and into some of these newer interactive platforms. It was really interesting what Evan said on the earlier segment around Snap's one of Snap's core strengths is that the user base has a smaller social graph, a smaller set of friends that they're connected to on Snap relative to Instagram and Facebook, and that should ultimately drive more content creation with the iconic Snap camera. Whereas I think Facebook would say one of its key strengths is the broad nature of its social graph with billions of users. Mm-hmm. So it'll be really interesting to see over time if that closer environment on Snap can drive engagement longer term.
Michael, you mentioned the Snap Kit that they just launched, sort of opening up the app to other developers, but that also opens up a lot of risk, does it not? Look at what Facebook has been going through with privacy, and Evan Spiegel wouldn't name Facebook by name directly in Julia's interview, but it's got to be something top of mind and something investors need to pay close attention to how Snap actually navigates through this.
Well, you're right. Anytime you open up your architecture to outside developers, you're creating a lot of risk, but the risks of not doing it from a business perspective are just too great. I mean, the latest integration with Pandora that Snap announced last week is a really great example. Snap's very strong with a younger demographic. Pandora is really strong with a bit of an older demographic, and the two companies are coming together to allow users of both platforms to go back and forth and share content. Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, they're already doing all that, and so that really helps to create more sticky, engaged users. And so I think it's important that Snap takes this step and sort of evolves into allowing some other content to come onto the platform. They're just going to have to manage the security and data elements really closely.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.